Welcome to Celebrate the Gray. This is Steve Wagner. I have my beautiful, lovely wife, Julie Wagner, here with me this evening.
Hello.
Hello. To let you in on the inside, I was working on a podcast on politics this week, and I threw it away. Well, I haven't completely thrown it away. I saved the file as I will probably never use this. But
you really should use it.
But it's, I don't know. That's a tough one, and it's tough. Anyway. So, instead, Julie agreed to hop on the microphones here, and we are going to talk about parenting. We are not going to talk about how to parent, necessarily. We're not giving advice. We have 8 children.
So we know 8 different ways to screw it up.
Yeah. Our oldest is 19. Our youngest will be 3 years old next week. But we are not experts. And it continuously changes. But what I want to talk about is, again, it's Celebrate the Gray. So parenting is not black and white. There's a lot of stuff in between. But as we've gone through our parenting lives, we've thought things were black and white. Mm-hmm. And then we're surprised, and then we change, and then we try again, and then we think it's black and white, and then we change. And it's really, it's been eye-opening. You think when you're...
Humbling.
It is humbling. You think before you have kids, you know everything, right? And you know how this is going to go, and you make plans, and you have ideas, and then, yeah, everything changes. So I think the thing we've learned most is to keep an open mind.
Yes.
If you would, do you have a thought on anything I just said? We start?
I just amen to all of that. There's so much learning and changing that comes from pain. And I think nothing opens up your mind like failing and realizing this is not working. The formulas I had here are not working.
So I'm thinking we'll start in the beginning and just kind of walk through our timeline. And it's funny because in the intro there, I just said that you have an idea of what you're going to do when you're a parent or how it's going to go. I don't think we did.
No, no, we've never been the best planners.
I think a story that illustrates that is when we were leaving the hospital with Zach, we didn't know what to do with ourselves.
Who was our oldest? Our first
He's
one.
Our oldest, right? So we were 23, 4 years old, somewhere in there.
Babies.
And we left the hospital, and on the way home from the hospital, we stopped at my work.
Well, we wanted to show him off.
We wanted to show him off, but I think we were also just afraid to be alone with him.
We really were. We're like, what else do we do? Is
So,
someone going to really let us take home this precious baby all on our own?
So we didn't know what to do with him. And I think as young kids, because I think I would consider us kids then, we had him tag along with us. So, and he was pretty good. I remember we would go out to eat and he would fall asleep in the booth at Chili's, and he was a pretty easygoing baby. But I traveled a lot.
Oh, okay. You remember him falling asleep at the booth at Chili's?
I do.
I remember buying a subscription to Parents' Day Out so that he could go there so that we could eat.
That was later.
I remember him bouncing all around the booth as we ate. Our memories are somewhere in the gray.
I was still thinking of the Maryland days.
Oh, okay.
Parents' Day Out was Charlotte when he was what?
Yes.
We moved here when he was 15 months old, so
Yes.
he would have been 2 or 3.
Okay, you were thinking of Maryland days.
I was
Okay,
thinking
yes.
of Maryland days.
Little bitty baby Zach. Okay.
Right. But we just kind of went with the flow. We didn't have a plan. You worked, I worked. He went to daycare. Is he the only child we ever had in daycare?
Yeah.
So
But that's a good example of not black and white, because I know when I had him, it was like, oh, he's just never going to daycare. Like with zero research that I had done on daycare, like absolutely an uninformed opinion. And then it's like 9 months into it, we're doing the budget and it's like, oh, he's absolutely going to daycare.
We need 2 income.
I need to go back to work. And because I remember my college best friend was like, wait, I thought you said you'd never do daycare. And I was like, I had never done the budget. So it was like, well, actually, no, he's going to daycare. And we found I thought a really fun daycare. It was called Toonie Town. Toonie Town. I loved them there. They were so playful and loving.
Then we moved to Charlotte. We took over a business and we had Zach with us for how long in the business before?
He was running all around the sign shop. Y'all picture like knives and X-Actos and equipment to cut signs. And we're like trying to run a business. Like, right. I don't think our frontal, what is it? Like your the thing in your brain
frontal
that doesn't
cortex.
Yes, it's not formed until you're like 25. I think ours was delayed because
it'll be fine, it'll be cute. We'll have his pack and play in there. He'll sleep and he'll just and then we're trying to deal with the customer desperately trying to sell signs so that we could, buy dinner that night.
Yes.
So we could go to the grocery store.
Buy oodles and noodles.
And he comes up and pushes the power button on the computer so many times that he fried it.
Yes, because I remember waiting on a customer and I was like, oh, because that's in our mind. We're like, we're going to save on daycare when we move to Charlotte because he's going to be in the shop with us. Because some franchisees did do that. Like I think it could have been done. We just didn't have the skills or the planning or the setup to do it. And I remember waiting on a customer and like just trying to pretend it was totally normal that there's a toddler running around behind the kiosk and like trying to sell the signs and do the things. And then I just heard the point of sale computer just make this long beep.
So flatlining.
Yes. The computer literally flatlined.
And we had, $700 extra or whatever it was to buy a new computer.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't. That's true.
And so it was like all of a sudden what it cost for daycare seemed like a bargain. Mm-hmm. And I remember we chose that daycare because I remember like, oh, I just have to find a daycare that the teachers look, just there's like an atmosphere of love. And I did love Chesterbrook Academy.
It sounds very regal.
It did. It sounded. It sounds more serious than it was.
Chesterbrook Academy.
It was very serious.
So I don't think at that point we had what I would call a parenting plan.
No,
we had nothing.
No, we had.
That's how we started as parents in parenting. We just kind of made it up as we went along.
Mm-hmm. And then I think that's why we were so hungry. Like we quickly found MEC, which is a church, became our church home, and it became a family.
Well, fairly early on at MEC, during Wednesday night services, they did a James Dobson series.
Yes, they played the old James Dobson videos. And it was like, because that was back when they used to have a Wednesday night service. And so we would go every Wednesday night because we were so lonely in Charlotte. And it quickly felt like a home because we started meeting people, and it was a much smaller church back then. It was easier to meet people and build relationships. And so we would go on Wednesday nights, which was an even smaller group. And they played these James Dobson, I think it was based on The Strong-Willed Child, was it? And it was like, it gave us a vision of like, we're the parents, which even though I have chucked the James Dobson books now, I do think it was a healthy balance for you and I. Like you and I are both pleasers. And so I think it brought a healthy balance of like, we are indeed the parents, that we are indeed in charge. So I don't think it was all bad, even though I don't really love James Dobson now.
Plus about this time we were adding more children. So it was harder to just kind of to flow, because after Zach we had twins.
Yes.
And if you're not familiar with James Dobson, it's very
my way or the highway.
Yeah.
I'm the boss.
It's definitely the parents are in charge. The father's the most in charge. He condones spanking and some corporal punishment, not abuse, of course, but
let's park on that, because if we want to talk about the gray in parenting, everybody it's a very divisive topic, and you can get people really upset and at odds with each other if you bring something up like that. But I myself have done spankings in love, and I myself have done timeouts in such hatred, and the reverse. So I don't think it's a black and white issue right there, but I don't know if we want to go right there that fast. So actually, can you delete that? Can you rewind and delete that?
It's staying in all of that.
I just think it's such a easily divided issue, and it's so emotional because there is to this point, and maybe I haven't come across the right book, but I have never found a book or philosophy that answers the question of, when your child wants to go that way and you want them to go this way. Attachment and natural parenting has some great ideas and great tools. The more authoritarian types of parenting books, they have some great tools. I love to pull from both of those, but neither of them has the real, when the rubber meets the road and you got to get to work, what are you going to do in that moment when another human being is expressing a desire that is opposite of the plan? And I think that's the gray area that we don't talk about enough, because we like to have, here's the perfect way to handle it.
And all kids are different. So you're not going to find the perfect way to handle it, because one kid, you might just give them the side eye and walk in a different direction. They're going to follow you. And then another kid, you might have them hooked to a leash and they pull out a knife and cut the cord and run the other direction.
And we have a couple of both.
So there is no one size fits all.
Yes.
But in this season of our life, because Zach was relatively easy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an only child, so he got all of our attention, and which probably helped to make it easier for him and for us. But as we added children and added personalities, it became more difficult. So we basically went from loosey-goosey, just kind of go with the flow, to, I think, overcorrecting to strict authoritarian dictatorship.
Because by the time Zeke was born, number 5, I'd read as many James Dobson books as I could get my hands on.
Yeah, a strong-willed child. So,
yes.
As we evolved from there, I think the teenage years, and we'll jump in because Zach turned 14, and how many kids do we have at that point?
Ezra and him are 13 years apart. So number 7, when Zach hit the teenage years, number 7 was born.
And that was eye-opening to hit teenage years, because something happens to kids when they hit adolescence and teenage years is they really want to be their own person.
Differentiation. And
you hear these horror stories that people will tell you is like, oh my God, they were great until they hit the teenage years. And then it was miserable. And I was like, I don't want it to be miserable. What happened? Why is it miserable in the teenage years when this kid has been decent for 11 or 12 years?
Because they stop being your mirror and your puppet, and they start being their own individual person, right. Which is actually, yes, it's challenging, but it's also this beautiful gift of starting to really see deeper into who they are.
Yeah. So I think that switch and it's happened gradually. It probably really didn't happen until Zach was driving and kind of truly independent. But I think we took the philosophy of, okay, this person is their own person, and they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to do things whether we like them or not.
Yeah.
We have 8 kids. We can't possibly be on top of what all of our kids are doing at all times.
It's delusional to think that we could.
Right. So, and I think it really hit home, and I've told this story before, not on the podcast, but to people. So if you know me, you might have heard this, talking about kind of I think the major switch for me in parenting and how I dealt with growing personalities was, and I'm assuming Zach will be okay with me telling this story.
We'll get clearance before
He went out on Halloween with a friend who Zach didn't drive at that point, and they did. And they went out and they were in a neighborhood, and they got a dozen eggs or something, and they were throwing eggs out the window.
They just wanted
people.
to be cool. They just wanted to have fun.
Right. And they thought it was funny, and, whatever. And at some point, the boy who was driving got pulled over for running a stop sign or something like that. And they saw the eggs in the car, and it ended up, I think they made him dump the eggs out or something. But it ended up being okay. They didn't get in any trouble. And Zach told me about the story, and I was like, how do you feel about being a part of that? Like, if you were walking down the street and you got hit by an egg that somebody threw out of a window, how would you feel if that was you? And being in a car with somebody who is driving erratically in a neighborhood, and I don't know, I realized that I can't be on top of him. He's going to be out with his friends, and this is only going to get more and more as he gets his own license and he goes away to college, which he is in now. Like, I don't know what he's doing every night. That it becomes his decisions to make. And I took it a step further. We live in a house that has a basement, and his bedroom is in the basement, and the basement has a walkout area. And I was like, I get up early. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. So by 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, I'm in bed. He's 2 floors away. I go to bed early. Really, at any point, he can just walk out the back door and go do whatever he wants. And I'm really not going to, and you also, you're not up late. That there just has to be some trust. And he has to decide to make the right choices. And it's been a switch, because
I can't help but think of the quote that freedom breeds trust.
Do you know who said that?
It's in a church called Tove book.
Oh, gotcha.
I was talking about this idea of like, when there's freedom, it builds trust. And I don't think we ever consciously did that. I think it was more survival. When we have 8 children, we cannot check up on all of them. And sure, some of them squander that trust. Like, we still can't figure out who eats all the cookies when we turn our back.
It's crazy.
It's such a
secret cameras are coming, I think.
Yes. It's like a massive problem.
Investment.
Like, you buy a family pack of Oreos, everyone gets their serving of 2 or 3 cookies, whatever. We just usually assign a kid to be the server, and they decide. All the cookies go out. They get put back in the pantry. By the next evening, there will be no cookies left. Like, there's none. So I'm not saying, I feel like that story was necessary, just as a continual reminder of like, these are choices we've had to make. They sometimes feel like they work terribly, and sometimes they feel like they work well.
Somebody licked all the icing off the cupcake somebody brought us yesterday. That was awesome.
Yeah. That is true. It's not physically, emotionally possible to follow up on all the things. Because I think there's still that like James Dobson voice in my head of like, hold them accountable, like all these things. And it's like, I cannot do that. Like, it's not humanly possible to follow up with all the things with all the kids all the time. Like, it's just not possible. Could I jump back a minute? Because I love what you said about personality.
Yeah, I moved really fast through all that. So
yes,
feel free to fill in. It seemed like it has moved really fast, but I feel like there's some holes.
We're covering 20 years of parenting in 20 minutes. Very thorough. No, I want to jump back because I feel like we could camp out on the different personalities, because I think it fits so perfect with your theme of celebrating the gray. Because I think as a human, it's so tempting to think, if this is going well with this kid, I've got the algorithm. And I think the perfect example of that is Zayden, who was number 6, who is like relatively the most easygoing kid we have. Like, he is the world's best friend. Like, he is truly been paid. I'm not making this up. That's a story for another time. But you need to know he's been paid for being such a good friend by strangers 3 separate times. Like, that's how easygoing we're talking here.
And it's not like creepy paid.
No, yeah, it's not.
It was just like,
That sounds
it was just like, thanks for saving my daughter's life.
Yes.
And I guess we have to tell that story now.
Okay, so he saved a little girl's life in Defy Gravity with another friend.
I don't think she would have necessarily died
in
the bottom of the foam pit.
I think the dad was super protective, and which is so honoring and so loving. And he just felt super thankful that Zayden helped his daughter.
But he was at a park one time, and a kid came over and handed him like $5, and he was like, "Thank you for playing with me today."
Yes, he said, "You're the best friend I ever had." And then we made him give the money back because we're like, that could be like his lunch money. It was like a day that there was a bunch of games at the field too. Like that, you have to, we don't get paid for being a friend. And then the third time was at Chick-fil-A. He held a door open, and a grandpa age man was like, "I just want to pay you for being so nice to me." I'm like, how does this kid get paid for being a friend? So this gives you an idea of the type of personality. And I think that I needed 8 children because, when he was a toddler, I vividly remember sitting in our old house in the front room, and he was about to walk up the stairs, and I looked at him. He was like, little over a year old. And I looked at him in the eyes. We made eye contact. And I was like, "Zayden, we're not going up the stairs." And he just kind of looked at me and was like, "Okay." And I remember thinking, I am really figuring this gig out. If I had a penny for every single time I was wrong when I thought that, I would be so rich. Anyways, I'm trying to be dramatic to be funny, but what I think is beautiful is that Ezra, right after Zayden, he's what did you say? Like, if you put a leash on, they'll cut it off with a knife.
Right.
Just like that is Ezra. Like, if I would have said that to Ezra, he'd be like, "I'm going to sprint up these stairs 1,000 times and then stick my tongue out at you." And I think it's so tempting to think the demeanor of your child is some sort of success or failure on your part, when really you are both just learning to love each other. You are both just trying to be and it's like you both have things to learn from the response to the other one's personality. So I don't think the personality thing could be overestimated, because I hear this too, like with sleepers, like, "Oh, he's such a good sleeper because of this, this, and this." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I get that, because that worked for 3 of my kids, but for 2 of my kids, it totally didn't. Like, it's like, like there's no magic formula.
And it's hard to allow the personalities because we still want control. Because if we feel like we have control over them, then we can control ourselves.
Yes.
To some extent. Because it's
a delusion.
It's so easy to spiral into chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Where everybody's going in different directions and the house is a mess. And I don't know. It's really easy to try and just hold on and make them do what you want to do, which I think it can work. Like,
for the right personality and the right age.
For some period of time, I think you can get kids to, but when they hit 12 and 13 and 14, I think that's the breeding ground for the hell that people talk about when they have.
Or the breeding ground for the holy. You're looking at me like...
You're going to have to explain that.
I love the look on your face. You're like, you're messing up what I have to say. No.
I want to hear what you have to say, but I just don't know what you mean.
Because I hate it when there is this doomsday picture of the teenage years, because every stage has a struggle. We like to look back with rose-colored glasses and see only the beauty in those early years because they're done. But there was also its own struggle, its own heartache. And the same thing is true with the teenage years, that if you want to hold on tight to this illusion that you can control another human being, it will be hell, is what I have experienced. That is my own experience. But if you want to let go and truly get curious and explore and really want to be a guide to this other human that you just have a brief moment in time to guide, it can get really, like, it's such an intimate relationship, and they want to hear from you. They really, really want to hear from you, but they do not want to be bossed around.
So when you say holy, it's a perception, and it's based on how maybe hard you're holding onto it, on whether it's holy or if it's hell. Like, if you try to maintain control and to overpower and to keep your teenager like you remembered them when they were an elementary school kid, very well, that could turn into hell. But if you adapt with them and you grow with them and you understand that they are their own person, that very soon will be out on their own and moving in their own life, then that experience, rather than seeing it as hell, can instead be a holy experience, as the relationship is that we hope to have as a religious experience.
Yes. And in 1 week, I have made that experience holy, and I've made it hell. It's like, I can fight, like I can think of one of my kids that I can fight this independent spirit they have and get into a battle of wills. But I can also think in the same week of how, it's easier to share the positive stories, how it's like, Zoe and Zane are twins, are 14, and they have jobs. And it's like them coming home and talking about work and hearing a 14-year-old's energy, their vitality, and their thoughts about work. It's like, you've got this window, this tiny speck of a window, to where they are like energetic about their new endeavor and they want to talk about it. And it's like, if we can offer compassionate curiosity, we've got so much wisdom just from being 43 years old of what we can offer in the form of questions. And I think those spaces where the little bit of times where I've been able to do it, it's like, what a joy it is to offer. It's like, we all want to know what to do with our pain. It's like, wow, we have this chance to, if we've worked on that, to offer questions, to guide them and have them reflect on their own. I'm kind of like going off on here, but just the few moments that I've gotten a glimpse of just truly accepting and surrendering, they're their own person and I'm their guide. And it's a privilege to be able to be their own guide. They're such a more peaceful and joyful place. And accepting that they're going to make different choices than me because they're a different person. I think that's where I can make it hell, is if like I am not accepting that they're going to make a different choice.
I think the hypothesis for all this is that if we don't attempt, we can guide, and we can guide probably without them really knowing necessarily that we're pushing them in a direction. But if we don't attempt to control and to tell them what to do, if they're making what they think or is their own decisions, I think the hypothesis is that when they go to make those decisions, they'll feel comfortable coming back to us and asking for our guidance. Because if I'm told to do something that I don't want to do, in the way my personality works, is I will just drag my feet until it doesn't happen or it becomes an emergency and I have to do it. Like, I'm not going to enthusiastically go to do it. But if you put somebody out there and say, here, this is your decision. We're here if you need it. If you want to talk about it, we're right here. But I'm going to let you kind of decide, do you want to work here? Do you want to buy this car? Do you want to go to this school? Do you want to date this person? Like, that when we put that to them, that hopefully our relationship is strong enough that then when they have questions about their next step, that they turn around and look at us.
Yes. And that would be the hope, because and I guess that probably is important to say, because that isn't a gray area for us. That's black and white for us. Well, it's also a gray area, but the target on the wall for us is relationship.
Yes.
Relationship. Like, how can we honor this relationship? Because that's our target is in the wall, that you get in a certain school or get certain grades. Of course, we want you to be your best because you're this wonderfully made being, but we don't have a target on the wall of like our plan for you.
Right.
And I'm not dismissing that someone else would. Like, for us, the target is relationships. And I can't help but think, questions bring gray areas, and good questions bring more gray areas. And a friend of mine, she has always said this phrase now, not always, for many years since both of our oldest were teens, would say, she was like, you change the quality of your questions, you change the quality of your life. And she is an excellent question asker. And I think that is both the scariest thing to do with older teens and also the best tool that I have so far. It's like, what can I ask you to understand more of your experience and your world, and be fearless at the response, and to be completely, to let go of that dualistic mind that wants to be like, this is right, this is wrong, you're good, you're bad. Oh, because people are exquisite at noticing when they're being judged, and particularly teenagers. And they're not going to tell you things about their life if you've got all the boxes of where you want their answers to be. And so I think that's been a tool that I want to just keep on practicing. I'm certainly not an expert at that, but it's certainly the times I've been able to ask good questions, I've been able to understand more about their experience. And I that meets my goal, because the target on my wall is relationships. Like, I try very hard. I love to run. I absolutely love to run. And so I occasionally invite my kids to run races, but I got to let that go if none of them ever want to run, because the target on the wall isn't me getting them to be runners. The target on the wall is like, they're their own unique person. And that is a marvelous mystery to be discovered. So,
yeah, it also creates challenges. Like I've talked about, I don't know, we were in the midst of a big conversation one time with our marriage, and I could have heard it from somewhere, but I feel like I kind of made it up, that I was like, a person's personality is, and I use the phrase, infinitely complex. Like, and to extrapolate that out a little bit is, there are things going on. There are things that we do right now in our lives that we don't know why we do it. It's something that happened when we were 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, that we do instinctively, that we don't have a true understanding of what is going on. So when you take someone who is reacting, when you're in an argument, they're reacting to you because of something that happened to them when they were 2 years old, that they can't possibly remember. Now you take two people like that and you put them together and then you try and have a relationship. And then now we have taken and added 8 to that.
So it's like 10 people.
And we want to be able to speak to each other for the next 70
the rest
years.
of our lives.
Yeah, as long as we can, and to have a close relationship. You need to understand personality. You need to,
or at least,
relinquish control to be in relationship. And I think I'll get into this when I talk about religion a couple weeks from now, but it's kind of the same thing as I kind of see God's relationship with us, is that he relinquished control. I believe in God, and I believe that he's in control of the universe. But as far as our relationship is concerned, he has relinquished control to us by giving us free will. We have to relinquish control because our kids have free will. Mm-hmm. When they turn 18 years old or whatever, legally they could walk out the door and never come back. They have that choice. There's going to come a time in your kids' lives, our kids' lives, where they're going to have a choice to make on whether they want to have a relationship with you. And we want to have a relationship with them. So where does that start?
Respecting their choices and individuality is what we're putting our chips on, I guess, huh?
To see them as a person.
I think you just found a title for the episode, in my opinion. We'll see what you decide to do, producer Steve. I didn't mean to sound so snippy.
Can you stop trying to control me? Just let me be myself.
Yes, I'm going to let you be your own self. Oh my goodness, that's a life journey. But the way you started kind of just like talking about this remembrance that other individuals, our children, our spouses, we are infinitely complex. That to me is so huge when it comes to black and white and gray stuff, because if people aren't infinitely complex, I can put them in black and white boxes. But if they're infinitely complex, then I have to hold the tension of difference and confusion. And I have to do the brave work of discovery about another human personality. And that takes presence and patience. And it takes letting go of the dualistic mind of like, this is what they should do and this is what they shouldn't. And I've got all the answers. And I think that is a gift and a challenge of having 8 different children, is it makes it really, really clear that none of the formulas work for all the kids. And I think as Americans, we want quick, easy formulas. And as young parents, I think it's so natural. It's a beautiful, natural stage. Like you have all this energy that you're creating order for your family and you just want to have this vision and you just want to follow it. And it's like all of life, I think, follows order, disorder, reorder. And those early years are so much energy into getting the perfect order, but disorder comes. I mean, just even in the rhythm of a day, you can see that. It's all the chores are done, reordered, disorder again. I mean, so much of a family rhythm is order, disorder, reorder, not only on a micro scale with the mess of the house, but even with understanding like this family rhythm. Because I think with some of our kids, we're in that reordering stage, like that scrambling of like, none of this is working. We need more tools. I'm sorry, that disorder stage. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I just think it's so normal to have this like first stage where you're just like, I'm going to get all the perfect things. And you don't even want to hear from the people that are in the disorder stage. Cause it's like, oh no, I am going to get the perfect order with a perfect family.
That'll never happen to me.
Yes, that'll never happen to me because I'm, for me, that comes out as, oh, I'm focusing on relationships. So that'll never happen to me. Oh no, it will. Like none of us are going to bat 1,000 on this thing. And which I think is our heart for this is like, we want more voices of people saying, we're wrestling through this. We're struggling through this. And this is what we're practicing now.
Yep. Authenticity. And I think we're at a fairly good stopping point, even though I'm desperately thinking of adding like those stages tend to change and you don't even realize it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You realize it too late. It's like, wait a minute, this was working for this kid. And now they're different. Why are they talking back to me? Oh my God, they have their own opinions now. Like they don't just, they don't want to get buckled anymore.
Yes.
In their car seats. And, I don't know.
Yes, because it's adorable when they're 4 or 6 years old and you're like, look, they just repeated back all my ideologies. Like, how brilliant am I and how brilliant are they? Oh, wait.
And then they start like throwing it back in your face. But I thought you were like this.
And you're like, Oh
Don't use me against me.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You are showing me what a hypocrite I am. And this is so painful.
So I think we've hit the points that we need to hit on this, that basically we did nothing and then we got really strict. And now we're in a push to reorder, to understand. I don't know. We're looking towards the future of like, will our kids want to be around us when we're 70 years old? And I do, before we get out of here, though, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your upcoming season.
Yes.
So Julie and I went out the other night and had a few spirits.
Beers. Like we were just... What is yours?
And ran through her schedule for this upcoming season. Do you want to tell us a little about what to expect from Celebrate Story? If you're a listener of Celebrate Story. And if you're not, you should be.
Yes, you should be if you're not. I am so excited because I'm going to do a mini series on some of the questions and some of the curiosities I have about what is church and what is the hope of the church. And I have booked 3 different interviews. One of them I've already done with 3 different authors that have truly challenged, comforted, and inspired me. So I'm so excited about that. And I'm so excited I'll be bringing the Untamed friends back that will be talking about some of those same topics. And finally, I'm going to also, the very kickoff of the season will be a talk I delivered at ICU Talks at Huntersville United Methodist Church in March. It was originally supposed to be recorded, but with a brand new location, which was such an amazing location. There was a technical difficulty and they did not get the audio recording. So I'm going to recreate it on the microphone. And I am thrilled because Steve Wagner has figured out how to do the video component for my podcast this in season 2, which I'm thrilled because I literally acted out some of the story in my ICU Talks talk. And it's the theme of that is called Changing the Narrative. And so I am so excited about that because that really is the theme for my whole season. Just like a dream and a vision of changing the narrative of church. And also the final part of my season 2 will be changing the narrative of education. And I have high hopes and lots of anxiety about that because I want to tell stories that are bigger than my transient identities. And the way I want to talk about education is, I hope, in a way that'll interest every single person that lives and breathes, because there is no such thing as other people's children. So the topics I am discussing, I want to be something that would engage not just a homeschool mom, but anyone who cares about the future of education, which feels very bold and very terrifying, but I'm going for it.
And it's education, it's learning, like just learning in general, whether you're doing it in a school setting or just in life.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm very
excited about that.
Yes.
And yes, we'll be doing, at least for the interviews and then ICU Talks, there'll be videos uploaded on YouTube this year, so that we can, or this season. Yep. So we're just expanding that a little bit. So thank you for listening to us today. And if you've liked what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcast or wherever you are listening to this today.
Yes. And I could never say thank you enough for your feedback. It is so fun to pour our hearts and our thoughts into these kinds of conversations. And then it like accelerates those live conversations in a way that is so beautiful. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you. And we'll see you next week.